Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie Bree. This is another food video, yummy yummy. And today we're comparing three ground beef based meals. Meatloaf versus shepherd's pie, also known as casserole, depending on which region of the US you're from. And versus hamburger helper, the poor person's meatloaf or casserole. Um, I use that poor person's thing in jest because we were too poor for Hamburger Helper. When we wanted Hamburger Helper, we cooked a box of dollar store mac and cheese and the cheapest ground beef we could get. But usually we did hot dogs because they were cheaper than ground beef. But that was the closest we ever got to Hamburger Helper growing up was cooking up some ground beef and mixing it in with our mac and cheese, which is a good meal, by the way. If you haven't done it, it is a good meal. It's a good cheap way to get your hamburger helper fix. So let's talk about the three meals. Meatloaf is ground beef, onions, some type of sauce. It usually has ketchup. It can have a sweetener like brown sugar is often an ingredient. It usually has bread or breadcrumbs and an egg or two. Uh, and it's cooked in a bread pan and baked in the oven. That's why it's called meatloaf. It's basically a loaf of bread made out of meat, hence the name meatloaf. Now, meatloaf is good because it does have some bready taste, but it also has some meaty taste. You got the eggs, you got the whatever seasoning you used. Grandma used brown sugar and other spices. I'm not going to reveal the rest of her secrets, but she made a damn good meatloaf. Meatloaf comes in two fashions. You can have I will say, solid meatloaf, cooked cooked all the way through, baked, uh, crispy, ketchup on top, solid slab of meat that you can cut with a knife. But another way to do meatloaf is to make it with really greasy and extra eggs and get a good soupy meatloaf, you know, which you can eat with a spoon. Either way works for me. I tend to do the soupier meatloaf than the more solid meatloaf because I like it. I don't want to cut my meatloaf with a knife. I want to scoop it with a spoon. You know what I mean? Um, when I go out to eat, I do not order meatloaf from restaurants because whatever they're selling, it ain't meatloaf. And do not get meatloaf at a restaurant, especially a local diner that has some jackass in the back cooking meatloaf who's never had meatloaf in his life. Don't eat meatloaf from there. Now casserole is a generic term that refers to a whole bunch of shit. Basically, it's just throw everything in a pot, stir it up, fry it on the skillet, and that's a casserole. Now, I'm specifically referring to a casserole called shepherd's pie. What it is it's ground beef, onions, seasoning, can of corn, can of green beans, can of cream of mushroom soup, can of tomato soup. Um, you can cook it with egg noodles if you want, but you can also cook it with mashed potatoes. Your choice. I prefer it with mashed potatoes, but also, and then shredded cheese on top. Now, it's a little more complex to make than a meatloaf. Meatloaf, you basically throw everything in a bowl, stir it up, pour it into the uh, bread pan, stick it in the oven, bake it for the allotted time, pull it out, you're done, you're good. You know, serve, eat, enjoy. Shepherd's pie, however, you have to cook in stages. You got to cook the mashed potatoes separate, so you got to do a whole pot of mashed potatoes, and you got to cook the substance separate. You start with the meat, the ground beef, you add the onions, you cook that, then you add the sauces, you cook all that in the skillet, and then you get a casserole dish and you pour all of the meat substance into a casserole dish, and then you scoop the mashed potatoes on top of the casserole substance, the base, the meat base, and then you add the shredded cheese on top of the mashed potatoes or egg noodles if you're using those instead of mashed potatoes, which again, you have to cook the egg noodles separate like you do the mashed potatoes. Like I said, it's a process. And then you stick everything in the oven and you bake it for the allotted time, pull it out, and enjoy. Really good. Now, Hamburger Helper is less of a process. You open the box, you pour everything in the bowl, you add the ingredients as necessary, milk, water, whatever. Stir it up, cook it on the skillet, let it boil, turn the heat down, and then eat it out of the pan. That's what I do. I just take a fork to I just sit at the stove and eat it out of the skillet. I don't put it on a dish because why would I? I'm just going to sit there and eat it hot because that's the only way it's good. There's a bajillion different types of casserole in the world. Like I said, we're talking about shepherd's pie. There's a bajillion different types of hamburger helper. The one I prefer, my go-to hamburger helper is the potato stroganoff, because it's the most similar to a meatloaf or a shepherd's pie. It's the one that I'm gonna eat if if I don't have the money for all the ingredients for my preferred meal. If I just got the couple bucks for a box of hamburger helper and a couple bucks for a pound of ground beef, good to go. If I got money to buy the other ingredients, the necessary veggies, soups, etc., then I'm gonna do shepherd's pie or a meatloaf if I've got bread. Or you can use crackers or breadcrumbs, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. Hell, you could crumble up an English muffin for all I give a shit. Um, anyways, of the three, uh, the best is shepherd's pie. That's like, number one, A plus, 5 star. That's a good ass meal. Meatloaf is a 3 star meal. It's fine. It's no shepherd's pie, but it'll fill your belly. It'll tickle your taste buds. It'll make you fat. Um, Hamburger Helper is a 1 star meal. It's rubbish, but you do what you gotta do. You eat what you gotta eat. Sometimes you ain't got the money for the good stuff. You settle for the rubbish. What are you gonna do? Now, sidebar. Sometimes I will grill a pound of ground beef in the skillet, dice up some onions, and eat that plain. Just eat it as is. Sometimes I'll add, if I have other stuff to add, maybe I'll add you know, a can of corned beef hash. Maybe I'll add, I don't know, some taco seasoning if I have it. Maybe I'll add some shredded beef. Or I mean, shredded beef. I mean, shredded cheese. Excuse me. Whatever I have lying around the house that I can throw in it. Sometimes I just eat it like that. Just ground beef, salt, pepper, onions. You're good to go. I can eat a bowl of ground beef cooked, but by itself. I can also put it on a bun or a slice of bread and eat it that way, and I don't need sloppy Joe mix to enjoy it. I could eat it by itself. I'm good to go. I just love ground beef. It's one of my favorite fucking foods. Stay cool.